Hello. It's time for another I Ching video. This time we're looking at hexagram number 8, which is B, or union. So I tried doing this video once already and I made a very silly and stupid mistake when I was doing it. I'll attribute that to a lack of sleep, but that's okay because mistakes are how we improve, right? So hopefully this video will turn out a bit better. This is hexagram 8, which you can see has the world below and the moon above. It has 5 yin lines, that's to say 5 broken lines, and only one single solid line, which is found in the 5th line, the ruling line. So right there you can see the imagery of union in it, because it's all of these weak lines coming together under the direction of the single solid line. So in the symbolism of the I Ching and the description of the image of this hexagram, which I'm taking my text from the Magician's I Ching, which is the book I wrote on the I Ching, and I hope you'll consider picking it up if you're looking to learn about a practical I Ching. It's by Aeon Books. You can find it on Amazon or at Aeon Books' website. And there are lots of other good versions of the I Ching out there, but this one in particular is for people who want to actually work with the I Ching, who want to practice in it and study it and wear down the book with notes and all that sort of stuff, right? So the other versions are quite good, but some of them have interpretations that are a lot more loose and new agey than this one, and others have a very strong focus on academics or sinology or linguistics or something like that, and they're meant more for an academic sort of study than a practical use. I think the Magician's I Ching is a right look. It's situated right in the middle of it. So that little ad aside, the image description of this hexagram says the tides, that is from the moon, naturally ebb and flow over the world. And then the description says it, union, luck, vassals follow their superior's will. You must have a clear vision of the real situation. Anxious rebel princes come back into union with the king. Those lazy, slow to answer the king's call, lag behind and face disaster. And then it says something very interesting. It says, do a second I Ching reading on a related question for great value. And the I Ching has a quality that I think is very, very useful in a divination system. Because one of the things that I've seen, and I'm sure anyone who's had some experience doing readings, especially maybe doing readings for other people using other divination systems, or any sort of divination system, will know that a lot of people are just trying to get the answer that they that they want to hear, and not necessarily what they really need to hear. And so sometimes you'll see people using a divination system multiple times, trying to ask the same question in slightly different ways or what have you, in the hopes of getting a different answer. And the I Ching has a built-in system. It has 2 hexagrams in particular, hexagram 4 and hexagram 8. And hexagram 4 says, do not do another reading on this subject. And hexagram 8, on the other hand, says, do a second reading on a related topic for great value. So they represent 2 different situations that a person might be in. In the first, the person is in a situation where they're not really capable of hearing the message. They just hear what they want to hear. And that's why hexagram number 4 is called immaturity. And in the other, in union, where people are the above and below of an individual is united, then they are in a very receptive position to hear what the above of their own consciousness is trying to tell them. And there, it can be really productive to delve deeper, and the situation calls for it. So, why is it that that we see that happen in terms of the mechanics of the structure of the lines? I mean, because in the title it's very clear. You have immaturity and you have union. Immaturity being an immature state, union being united within yourself. And the reason for that, when you see both hexagrams contain the trigram of the moon, but in one, the moon is above, that's in number 8, and the other one, the moon is below. And so what you see a lot of times with the moon trigram is that the moon trigram appears in a lot of the hexagrams that are kind of ill-omened. It's kind of the moon represents the abyss, the deep subconscious, and all this sorts of stuff that can often get you into trouble. And in most circumstances, it doesn't come out looking very good in terms of getting it in a hexagram. That's not the case with hexagram number 8. And the reason for that is because here, the moon is unopposed, you could say. The central line of the moon, the middle line, that inner line of the moon, is in complete control of the situation because all the other lines are broken lines. And on top of that, it's in the right position, right? The one solid line, the yang line, is in the position of the 5th line, which is, in any hexagram, the 5th line is generally the dominant line. It's the line of the ruler, the line of the king. It represents the superior individual. And so if it is a strong line, that's usually good. And if it's not a strong line, or if it's a strong line but that is in some way obstructed or unsupported, it's not good. Comparing that to hexagram 4, which this time I've put correctly, you'll see that here the moon is below and the earth or mountain is above, right? And what you get here is a situation where the solid line of the moon is in line number 2, which is also often a good line. But in this case, what we have is a disconnection between what's above and what's below. In what's above, you see a weak line in line 5. You see a strong line in line 2. Naturally, those two should be opposite. You should have the ideal balance between the lines is when the broken line is below and the solid line is above. And here it's exactly upside down. The solid line is above, the broken line is below. And then on top of that, you have the 6th line, which is above all the others, is a solid line. Now, a 6th line is the line of the sage. It's the line that's outside of the relevance of the situation. And so you see in hexagram 4, the description of the 6th line talks about to deal with the immature, he tries to beat the child, right? The number 4 hexagram relates the imagery of an adult and a child, a teacher and a student, a master and a disciple, whatever you want to call it, where the disciple is not willing to listen to the master because he thinks he already knows what he needs to know, or he already knows what he wants to hear, and is not willing to listen to anything else. And on the other hand, the master is not in a dignified position. He's in a position that has gone beyond into the extremes. So what you get in number 8, in union, is the ideal situation. That extreme is weakened, the ruling line is in charge, and everything else is passive and receptive, deeply receptive. You can see it's almost like this vast well ready to be filled by the primordial waters of the moon. So everything is open to getting new information. So everything in hexagram 8 relates to the idea of the relation between superiors and inferiors, much like in hexagram 4, except that here what you see is it talks about the relation between superiors and inferiors in a positive sense, right? How to be on good terms with your vassals is how the I Ching puts it. In the advice to the great work, it says, rulers of old did well by being on good terms with their vassals. So the ruler here, if you get this casting and you're in a position of authority, say if the question relates to something where you're the person in charge, the advice here is that you need to be on good terms with your vassals. And on the other hand, if you're in a position of subordination here, the message is you have to be receptive and supportive of the person who's in charge. Line 1, the bottom line, you see is far away from the ruling line, so it doesn't have a lot of opportunities. But the advice then is be confident and sincere, assist the king, that's line 5, and he will gain you a windfall eventually, right? Good fortune. Line 2 says the unification of the inner circle, that is everybody in your close group. The lower group is ruled by the second line, but the second line is subservient to the fifth line in this case, right? In the I Ching, the 3 lines of the lower trigrams are connected to the respective 3 lines of the upper trigrams. So line 1 connects to line 4, and line 2, which is the ruling line of the bottom trigram, connects to line 5, which is the boss line of the upper trigram and of the entire hexagram. So with the second line, it suggests being united with the people immediately around you, but also then leading that union towards serving the higher purpose, right? Because the king here could be a person, it could be your boss or something like that, it could be your teacher, or it could be this bigger cause, right? Now, line 3 is connected to line 6. I'm going to talk about those two in a second. When we see line 4, it says, union with the king is achieved even from those outside the inner circle. So line 4 is not connected the same way line 2 is to the ruling line, but because it is below the ruling line and it's a receptive line, it's a yin line, it's working in coordination, it's upholding the will of the king, and therefore it ends up uniting anyways. It ends up in a positive situation because it's a yin line and the ruling line is a yang line. Then we get to line 5, which would be, in other words, the advice to the superior, right? And here it says, the king loses his prey, but because he allows their escape, he can thus see which traitors flee and which remain loyal. So this is a line that it's advising not to be a harsh ruler, right? To allow people who want to get away from you to get away from you, and to, in that way, first win the support of the people, because you're being moderate, right? You're showing moderation, which increases the loyalty of the people around you. And it also lets you know what people's real sentiments are. Because if you're a harsh leader, then people to your face will try to be subservient, and then behind your back won't be, right? If they know that they can be direct about their feelings towards you, then that creates a different situation, right? And then you can see who is really on your side, who really isn't, and you're more aware of the situation. And finally, line 6. In line 6, it says, he hesitates too long to unite to the king's cause. He's already moved past the king there, right? He's above the 5th line. And he is forsaken and stands alone. Disaster. So line 6 is connected to line 3. And line 3 is a person who is instead of turning to the leader, is turning to somebody else who is outside the leadership and is only going to get them into trouble. And line 6 itself is somebody who has gone above the leadership and gotten lost, and it's not going to go well for them. So the message of union, is all about how people have to all come together for a common cause, right? And with somebody or some group or something in charge, and everybody else being receptive to it. In the mystical sense, you can interpret that as your own inner being, right? That you're the ruling line is your higher self, your superior individual. And everything else has to be in union with that superior individual in order to achieve clarity and to succeed in your goals. That's everything for today. And please, if you like the video, feel free to subscribe and to share it anywhere you like. And if you're interested in more information, because if you're a member of the FA Society, you'll receive, besides the public videos I make, there are other videos, writings, more instruction on each of the hexagrams, and a whole system of training. So if you're interested in a more serious look and working with the I Ching and a system of meditation as a spiritual discipline, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much.